Hola collectors, and welcome to Long's Toys. Today we are taking a look at Voyager Class Gamer Edition Megatron from the Transformers Studio series from Hasbro. We can see he is fourth in the series, and this is our new version of Megatron from War for Cybertron. You can see the logo up here in the top left. Previously, this was released as a deluxe way back in the day as part of the Generations line, so he has been scaled up to be a Voyager now, and should be roughly the same size as the Voyager Optimus Prime we saw earlier in the year. So I'm really excited for this. We have some nice artwork of Megatron here on the front and both sides. I believe it's just the same picture, just kind of zoomed in at different degrees. Have the War for Cybertron logo up top. Nothing really going on the bottom. Spinning it around to the back, we have some nice product shots of the robot mode and the vehicle mode. And then, of course, the backdrop that's included. So, again, I'm excited for this one. I'm going to go ahead, get him out of the packaging here, and we'll take a closer look. Here is Megatron with the little backdrop that's included. I'm sure this is another level of the game. It's just been so long since I've played it. But it looks to be somewhere on Cybertron. Maybe we have some Energon cubes or something over here. Not 100% sure where this is supposed to be, but it does look pretty cool, and he fits very well in the space, and I think it looks pretty great. Here is Megatron out of the packaging, and honestly, he came out fantastic. I think he looks great. Really no kibble whatsoever. This piece compresses onto the back very nicely and doesn't really get in the way of anything. You have some of the tank tread pieces down here forming the backs of the legs so it doesn't look hollow. That looks great. You have the treads kind of folded up here on the side, which is a little busy, but really not too bad. And the paint applications, I think, just look fantastic. Let's take a look at this head sculpt. Really nicely done. Mostly silver, but you have that little bit of purple. And then the red eyes looks fantastic. You have kind of that part of the Decepticon symbol there on the head crest. Really just looks phenomenal. All the paint here on the chest, the Decepticon symbol looks great. Some more paint down here. A little bit of purple. All the pops of purple I just think really, really work. And of course all the red looks really great too. The red here on the shoulder and then over here on the forearm wraps all the way around. Now you have the cannon here. This is a separate piece. I like to use it like this. I think the directions have it like that. Now this is definitely how you're going to attach it for the tank mode, which is kind of why I personally like to do it backwards for the robot mode, just to make it look a little bit distinct. And also I kind of feel like the original, cartoon version of Megatron, the back of the fusion cannon was kind of a little bit larger because it was the scope of the smaller toy gun. So I just kind of like the look of it this way, but of course you can orient it however you like. He does come with one other accessory, which is this giant mace, which does come in two parts. So let me see if I can unpeg this. It's pretty tight once you peg it in. You can see here how it has kind of like these beveled sides. So there's really only one way you can attach it. And it fits in very snugly and has some really nice purple paint. And then he can just hold it in his hand very simply. And so he has this giant Energon mace weapon, which looks pretty cool. Now, even though his weapon is the fusion cannon, he does still have the gimmick where you can take the arm off. And if you have the accessories from any of the other figures, you can peg those on. And so he can still utilize that gimmick to have the arm transform into the gun. Or if you really want, you can actually just peg the fusion cannon onto the end of his arm as well. Well, that looks a little goofy because it's so overly large, but it absolutely still can be done, which I think is pretty cool, and then that just pegs right back on. So yeah, gimmicks work really well. Articulation-wise, the head's on kind of a limited ball joint. It can go back about that far, tip ever so slightly forward. Mostly it's just going to go side to side. You can get a little bit, well, I was going to say, it's kind of a minute amount of head tilt side to side, but for the most part, it's really just going to look side to side. You have a swivel here in the shoulder as well as a hinge, so you get a good 90 degrees there as well as that swivel. You have double jointed elbows, as you can see. But because of that, I don't think he has anything in the bicep. Yeah, I don't think he has any kind of a bicep swivel, which is kind of a bummer, but not that big a deal. He needs this for the transformation to utilize that double elbow there. Oh no, there is a, okay, so here it is. It's actually right here. So that's where the bicep swivel is. I almost missed that. Because of this hinge, I didn't see it. But yeah, so there's your bicep swivel. Nothing in the wrists. They fold into the forearms for transformation. I'm assuming it's a similar situation over here. Yeah, so there's the bicep swivel. Still has the double jointed elbows. And then nothing in the wrists. Waist can swivel. Pretty good hinge out to the side here. Almost 180. I would say probably like 120 degrees. You can click forward and back pretty well. I mean, he's got some crazy hips. This guy can move. Certainly going to be an excellent break dancer. You have a thigh swivel there. The one thing I don't love, the way the knees work, you can kind of see how it has this piece. Let me zoom in a bit here. So you have this piece here, and so when you go to utilize that knee joint, it just kind of hits there and it stops. So his knees can't really go much further than that. Now, it does make it very nice and stable when you want him to stand. I like to kind of bend there and then have him stand like that. And so he's not going anywhere, but unfortunately, you know, he's not kicking backwards. But he's got so much movement in the hip, it's not a big deal. I just thought it was a little odd. And then down here in the ankle, you have a tilt out to the side. And then you also have a hinge here. And then technically you can hinge the toes as well. That's really for transformation. You can see the pin right there. But if you want to utilize it for articulation, you can absolutely do that as well. So he's got a pretty nice range of articulation. I just think he looks fantastic. All the paint applications look really good. I think all the accessories are really successful. And even though his gun isn't kind of the traditional one that the other characters from the Gamer series come with, he can absolutely still utilize that gimmick, which I think is really great as well. So yeah, I'm really liking this guy. I like him quite a bit. Let's do a couple size comparisons with other Gamerverse figures. So of course, here he is with Gamerverse Optimus. You can see that they are about the same size. Both have now been scaled up to Voyager class, and I think they look absolutely fantastic. I really like this. The two of these together really work. And then of course we have the only other Decepticon released so far. Here is Deluxe Class Barricade. I think they work pretty well. I mean, this guy's pretty big for a deluxe, so he's almost the same size as Megatron here. But it still works. You know, he's got one troop to command so far. Hopefully we'll be seeing some more soon. But yeah, these two look pretty great together as well. Getting into his transformation, I've already gone ahead and removed the fusion cannon. You're going to want to put that and the other accessories off to the side. We are going to start by taking these panels here on the side of the forearm and opening them up. And you want to make sure that you open them up all the way so that the fist has room to rotate inside. And then you're going to just close that back up. Do the same thing over here on this side. There we go. Flip that around and close that up. Then we are going to take the legs. If you have the knees bent like I have them right now, you're going to want to push them back up and then rotate them inward 90 degrees. You're going to grab the chest here, and you can see where the kind of painted red meets the dark gunmetal gray, and you're going to want to pull this away from the body right there. It's on this kind of hinge piece, and you can see that there is a tab right there and a tab slot right there. So as you bring this around, it's going to rotate this way, tab in, and then just kind of come and sit down here over the thighs. Then you are going to take the arm and utilize that double elbow joint that we talked about earlier. You can kind of push this up, and then you'll also push up this little tab. And then as you rotate this, you can see that there is a tab slot right there, and that's going to tab into these two tabs here. You're going to utilize this hinge to bring this in like this. And then you're going to just go ahead and tab those in like that. And so they'll just kind of loosely tab in like that. Now we're going to come around to the back. We are going to pop this section down and then lift this section up. Now as we do this, we have to rotate this piece around 180 degrees. You can kind of see that the mushroom peg is right here. But there are these kind of weird little tabs. So it becomes kind of an interesting act because of the little kind of tabs right here. So you have to kind of bring this up and rotate it around and then bring this back up so that you don't, if you try to go over those tabs, it's not going to end well. So once you have that done, you can push this up. At this point, you're going to straighten out the arm. We're not going to use the double elbow on this one. We're going to lift this up on the same kind of hinge. Now, this is interesting. So there's this tiny little piece right here, and there's kind of a tiny little slit right there. So you kind of want to just, if you can bring this back a little bit, to kind of bring this up and over, and then you can kind of bring this up to fill in that space like that. And then there are these tabs right here, which is going to fit into this little spot. If I can shine some light. Well, you know what? I'll undo this. So as I bring this in, you can see right here. Do you want to focus for me? What do you think? There we go. Okay, so this is going to go in here, and then you have these little tabs, which are going to go in here. So it's kind of an interesting like lineup of all these things. So this comes in, you push this, and you can't see that. So you want to line up this tab like we did previously. Then you want to push that one in. And as you do that, that will kind of naturally set those two in that. And so that just kind of all lines up and sits like this. At this point, you're going to come down here to the legs. This little section here, you can kind of see the hinge. This, oh, I'm on the wrong side. That's why. Okay, so here it is. It's still the same hinge, but you're going to build. You're going to flip this piece up like that, which will allow you to flip this piece up like that. And then you're going to kind of unhook this. So there's a little tab inside there that you kind of have to wiggle out. And it can be a little difficult. But this little tab, let me zoom in again. This little tab right here is in a little spot right there. So you kind of have to wiggle that out. Now, here comes the fun part. So you have to bend the toe down like this. And then what I like to do is use that ankle tilt to kind of pop this out to the side so you can get clearance, so that you can bring this in while you're also rotating this around it. So that tabs in like this. And then you can kind of see that there's a tab right there, which is going to fit in between these two spots right here. So that's just going to come around and pop like that. So really not too difficult. That's kind of the whole side of the tank. And you want to make sure that foot's pressed in as much as it can be. So we'll come around here and do this one more time. Flip this section out first. Like that. This flips out like that. Then you want to untab this from inside. Fold in the toe. And then I like to use that ankle tilt so I can get clearance. Flip this around and then push it back down and then pop that around. And there we go. At this point, you're very close to being finished. Did I rotate these? No, I have the thing upside down. Okay, here we go. So you have a series of tabs. Here is a tab slot here. There's also kind of this like friction piece. You can see it right there. And then you also have a tab here, or a tab slot here on the front. So as you bring this around utilizing the knee joint, this tab is going to go in there. This little friction spot is going to go in here. And then this tab slot is going to peg in that right there. So it's kind of interesting. But as you do it, it kind of all naturally, like what I try to do is line up the front one. And by doing that, everything else kind of goes where it's supposed to go. So peg this in. Okay. Well, so much for that. You're making me look bad on camera. All right. Come along. There we go. Okay. There it is. All right. So now that all snaps in, we have one side done. And just got to make sure that stays flipped up and this little piece stays flipped up. So we will flip this around again. Line this up. Peg this in. Peg all these in. Like so. I don't think that's all the way in. There we go. Okay. And there we go. There is our tank mode. There is only one last step. Go ahead and grab that fusion cannon and peg that into the peg here on the front to give you your giant tank turret. And there we go. There is Megatron's giant tank mode. Here is Megatron's tank mode. There's not much to it. It's kind of just a giant brick. I think it's interesting that the tank treads are kind of vertical, but I'm assuming these like ports here are how he hovers. He's kind of like a hover tank, so this is kind of where the propulsion would come out so that he can hover. The turret, unfortunately, does not really move because of how everything's pegged in, so he does not have any kind of a movable turret. But I like the design. It's very compact. I think it works. You know, you don't have a ton of robot kibble underneath here. It's really just the chest plate, and you can see the parts of the arm. But in this configuration, they don't really look like an arm. But yeah, I think it works. They hide the head well, so you don't even really see Megatron's head. I mean, you can tilt it and kind of see him peeking out, but just to look underneath, it's not super apparent. So, other than I wish the turret could move, I think it's a pretty cool, compact little tank mode. Now, if you want, you can. The directions show that you can go ahead and pop this on the back. I think that looks absolutely ridiculous, so I'm not going to do that. But, of course, it is possible to store the weapon there. But, yeah, I think as a cool little hover tank, I think it's pretty neat. But I have to admit, this to me kind of looks more like a drone-type hover tank as opposed to the Decepticon leader. It's not super majestic. I do like the design. I just don't know if it has, the full pathos to be Megatron's alt mode. I definitely like it, but I just don't know that it's grand enough, if that makes sense. It seems to me more like a drone hover tank or something like that. It almost gives me kind of Insecticon vibes with the pincers on the front and the way the legs are kind of here in the back. Like, honestly, if you kind of took this off, you could almost have like a War for Cybertron Insecticon kind of a thing. Like, that's kind of, what this reminds me of. Again, I really do like the design. I just don't know if it's grand enough to be Megatron, but I'm fine with it. I'm not upset by any means. But yeah, not really any kind of articulation to speak of, but it is a cool tank design. I like Megatron a lot. I think the robot mode looks fantastic. Hardly has any kibble. The paint applications look great. Articulation's very good. Accessories are very cool. I don't really have any problems with the robot mode, and I don't really have any problems with the tank mode either. I think the transformation is fairly intuitive and straightforward. You're just kind of tucking the arm on one side, the other arm on the other side, and flipping the legs around. It's really not too difficult, and I think that the alt mode you're left with looks really good. It just, to me personally, strikes me as more of kind of a grunt soldier tank than like the leader of the Decepticons alt mode. And again, this is something that goes way back to the game design, so of course they have to make it look like that, and I'm not blaming Hasbro at all. And I do like the design. I just kind of wish it was a little bit more grandiose. But again, this is something that I had to take up with the game developers years ago. Certainly nothing that Hasbro did wrong. Hasbro recreated his design in the game very, very well. And I think it's a very, very cool design, and I really do like Megatron quite a bit. So I think it's very, very nice to have this figure. I think it's much better now that it's been scaled up to Voyager as opposed to Deluxe. And I don't remember that figure a ton, and I don't have it handy at all to do a direct comparison. I wish I did. But I kind of remember that one being more difficult to transform. I think all of the War for Cybertron toys back in the day were much more difficult to transform, and I feel like this is not super simple, but like just enough of a challenge that it's fun to go back and forth without being aggravating. There's not really any clearance issues or anything like that. I think it's a pretty fun transformation, so I like this figure a lot. I really do. Definitely recommend checking it out. And I'm really enjoying the Gamer Editions so far, and I hope they continue. So let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Please like, share, and subscribe. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and as always, thanks so much for watching.